All right, it is late Sunday night. Here's what we did. House and I started taping at 9:08 ET, and we went all the way through till a little before 11 ET. And then nephew Kyle was putting the pod together. We're going to have it up. And then, of course, because it's the NBA, three things happened. So a couple things we talked about in the pod you're about to hear. One of them was the Jimmy Butler sign and trade to Miami, which we assumed was done. And now seems like it's up in the air because there was some disagreement. Dallas was the third team. We don't know what's going to happen with that. So as you hear all that part, keep that in mind. The Jimmy Butler thing, I'm taping this right now. It is 12:11 a.m. ET. That's up in the air. I assume they're going to work it out, even if Butler has to take less. But Kelly Olynyk to Dallas and then Josh Richardson to Philly. We talked about most of it. But the big thing, Golden State retooled out of nowhere. They ended up turning the KD leaving the Brooklyn thing into a sign and trade. They got D'Angelo Russell, who, in my opinion, was the best stealth free agent in this entire class. 23 years old, an all-star last year in the East, but I think somebody with the upside to get even better. I was really impressed by him. I actually, if I was Brooklyn, I would have kept him and not dealt with Kyrie and all the potential downfall with him. I just really like his game. I think he still has the room to get better. The free throw rate isn't great, but for what the Warriors do, I think they can maximize all the stuff he does, which is he's a fantastic kind of one-on-one perimeter dude. He's a heat check guy. He is somebody that I think could eventually be a 40% three-point shooter. And somebody that could really work nicely with Steph and with Clay and can create his own offense and play off other guys. What it does is it buys Golden State time for the Clay comeback from the ACL. If he can somehow come back March, April range, and they can stay late in the playoffs, like a 7 or 8 seed, assuming they sign another big guy, and they're alive for the season. Before they weren't. I thought they were in real trouble this season just to make the playoffs. If it was just going to be Curry and Draymond, we saw what teams were able to do against Curry if they knew he was the only person they had to worry about. You can get super physical with him. You can steer your whole offense to him. He needs other guys to play off of to get open and create space, all that stuff. Russell now, I think, increases the ceiling of that team and could put them in the 6 seed, 7 seed range, potentially in the West, which if Clay can come back and can be even 80, 85%, suddenly they at least become a little bit interesting in the playoffs in round 1, round 2. So long-term, Russell, Curry, Clay, I assume they're going to try to bring Kevon Looney back or some sort of big man like that. But at least they have the foundation now to be really competitive. And then long-term, they're the Warriors and they have the best shooting backcourt of all time. They had to sacrifice Andre Iguodala. They traded him to Memphis for a lightly protected pick that doesn't really jump into place until 2024. It's like top 4 protected then, top 1 protected in 25, and unprotected in 26. Pretty cold. The NBA is a cold place. It's been cold both ways. Let's be honest. Like, this has been the player empowerment decade. And what we've seen these days is there's no loyalty really on either side, with some very rare exceptions. But, I think we'll remember this decade once and for all for, it starts with LeBron stabbing Cleveland in the back and going to Miami. And as the decade went on, that didn't even seem like the worst thing that happened. Probably the worst thing that happened was the Celtics dumping Isaiah Thomas and putting him in the Kyrie trade, when you're just talking about loyalty either way. The Iggy thing, he was an unbelievable Warrior. The acquisition of him started their whole little dynasty run. Finals MVP, future Hall of Famer, was such a big part of that team on and off the court. He just was on a book tour and had some unflattering things to say about the Warriors, and was talking about how he is basically misdiagnosed and played with a fractured leg. And when I read that stuff, I was thinking, ooh, this probably isn't going to play out great. I did not expect them to trade him within a week, but it's hard to imagine that wasn't related. But I think big picture, they can buy out Livingston, I think, for $2 million. And this team looked old in the playoffs. They really did. They, Livingston and Iggy, when you stay, especially when you get to those last 2 rounds, and you're playing every other night in the conference finals, then the finals, just every game is a war. Those guys did seem old. And I think Russell, Curry, and Clay, it's a younger nucleus now. Not a championship nucleus, but it's a younger nucleus. They have a little more flexibility. And that team has been really good at finding the Jordan Bell, Quinn Cook, Ian Clark, Kevon Looney, like late first rounders, fringe guys, undrafted guys, second round picks. They've paid for picks in the 30s. And they've just been really good at being able to find guys, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth guys. So they're going to be relevant. And before we bring in House here, really the only free agent now left, it is now 12:17 a.m. ET, is Kawhi. And Kawhi, I think I had heard that he was going to string this out for at least a little while, but we'll see. Everybody is just jumping on teams. Oh my God, as we're doing this, Bobby Portis signed a 2-year deal with the Knicks for $31 million. We're going to talk about that with House in a second. I can't believe today. There's never been a day like this in the history of the NBA. The fortunes of 12 teams have changed. I'm not sure who the favorite is, unless Kawhi ends up with the Lakers. I think this is the first season we've had, I don't even know, the 2004-05 season, maybe the year after the Pistons won, when Shaq got traded to Miami. And we really had no idea who was going to win the title that year. And for a while there, it seemed like it might be the Pacers. And then the Artest melee happened, and we ended up with a really strange Pistons Spurs finals. But 4 other teams felt like they probably could have made the finals that year. That was the year Joe Johnson broke his face, and it was just a bizarre year. And it feels like unless Kawhi ends up on the Lakers and they really become the prohibitive favorite, we just don't have a favorite. We have 9 or 10 teams that are going to linger. The buyout guys in February are going to be more important than ever. Being able to flip expirings for one last piece. That's why a team like the Celtics that we talk about in this podcast with House, they're not a finals contender right now, but they're one trade away from being a finals contender, especially if they can get something back in the sign and trade with Terry Rozier with the Hornets. If they can get an expiring contract back that's in the 16, 17 million range, but Bismack Biyombo, if they just got him back, now that seems crazy. Why would you want Bismack Biyombo? Well, he's an expiring contract. He's $17 million. You could put him with the Memphis pick that they have, and they could really get, another impact guy. You could put Biyombo with Marcus Smart and the Memphis pick, and now you can get a guy who's making $30 million a year. You could potentially get Kevin Love. Now, I don't know if I would do that. I love Marcus Smart. But my point is, the Celtics are a move away from potentially being a finals team. Toronto is a Kawhi away from being the favorite to repeat. The Lakers are a Kawhi away from being the prohibitive favorite. The Clippers are a Kawhi away from being one of the 12 teams that have a chance to be competitive in the playoffs. So this is a crazy day, and you're about to hear really the genesis of it with House. We started taping 9:08 p.m. ET. Here it is. All right, we're taping this. It is 9:18 Eastern time. So if more stuff happens, you're just going to have to hear it on the fly. Right before we started taping, news broke that Al Horford, former Celtic, signing with the Sixers, 4 years, $109 million. They also sent Jimmy Butler to Miami, who then signed a giant deal with them and got back Josh Richardson. Let's start here, House. It looks like Philly's starting 5 next year will be Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson, Al Horford, and Joel Embiid. Does the road to the 2020 finals go through Philadelphia?
I believe the answer to that depends on what Kawhi Leonard decides to do. But I feel like I should start with an apology. Apology number 1, just to get it out of the way. 3 hours ago, you tweeted a picture of you and me and the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, and David Jacoby, and said that you would be joined by one of the people in that picture for this podcast. A lot of people were rooting for somebody other than me. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the consolation prize. But that's the theme of tonight, right? There's a lot of consolation prizes going along around out there, Bill Simmons. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are just going to have to grin and bear it. Just take what you get. Now, I love the Sixers position right now. And in fact, I tried to go online 2 hours ago and look at the Sixers odds because there was plenty of reports out there about Horford joining the Sixers, which I thought was terrific. It is a loss for the Sixers to have parted ways with JJ Redick, but at his age, you can get something that kind of walks up to it. I didn't know that it was going to be Josh Richardson, but I like that Sixers lineup. I mean, when you think about how close they came to beating Toronto, the only knock I have on the Sixers, and I know all the Sixers stands, all the Brett Brown stands will come at us, but I'm still not a Brett Brown fan.
I'm not either, but it's a little easier when you have that starting five. The other thing is, the ceiling of that starting five, I think, is higher than what they had last year. Richardson's a better two-way player than JJ was and is. And the Horford thing is important for a couple reasons. I do think he can play with Embiid, and he gives them some protection from Embiid, a guy who is not exactly Mr. Durability. So, if Embiid goes down for 20 games in December or January, or if he misses game 3 of a round 2 series, you're not completely screwed. You're not in the same situation you're in last year. I got to say, Philly, took pretty huge gamble last year with the Butler and the Harris trades, and especially what they gave up in the Harris trade. I thought they overpaid for Harris today, $180 million for 5 years. Just seems like a lot for a borderline all-star. But in terms of the big picture of what they were trying to do, I guess it's okay. I'd rather overpay somebody like that than pay $58 million for Terry Rozier, right? At least you're overpaying somebody who's a borderline all-star.
Yeah, he is going to be an important cog in a machine that has finals aspirations. You can't, just walk out into the free agency market and grab all those rebounds. I like how hard he played. He plays, his motor is great. He kind of, this was for him, this most recent playoffs, the most important games he ever played in his entire basketball life. So he was inconsistent, but he had a couple of incandescent moments. He went off. We had a couple Toby games out there. He just wasn't able to sustain it. But with this team and he also, go ahead.
He was the fourth option. That's always tough. But keep going.
Yes, yeah. But they have a lot of luxuries. I think the Horford thing especially, maybe they can be deliberate with, we've just learned, I think, a pretty important lesson with Kawhi, with the load management, maybe 65 games for players who have certain, injury proclivities, who are injury risks. Maybe you just look at the schedule and map out 65 games for them and minimize the risk, diminish the risk. Al Horford is that luxury for the Sixers, and he and Embiid can play off it. Maybe both of them just play 65 games. You know what I mean? They can swap which games they take off. And the thing that I like the best about Horford is it immediately should alleviate the thing that drove me absolutely bananas, which is Joel Embiid standing out at the 3-point line with 16 seconds left on the shot clock, holding the ball, waiting for a wing to come so that he could give a pass off, a handoff. And then if it didn't materialize, turning and then trying, either shooting, which is the worst case scenario, or trying to get into the lane. That drove me bananas. And if Horford should just be that guy, he's superior at it in every respect, both the 3-point shooting and the passing. So I think that's a great opportunity for Joel.
Horford, a great teammate, good guy to have around, really smart, doesn't need the ball. I really enjoyed him. I have nothing bad to say about Al Horford. I think the one worry that you would have is the 3rd and 4th years of that contract, because, he's been in the league a long time now. And this is all the moves you make today are moves that you make when you're trying to win a title over the next 2 years. But, to be fair, they've been pretty candid about that they felt like their window last year was starting, and they had studied what had happened with some of the other teams in the league, like the Durant Westbrook OKC and all these young teams in the past that thought they had these 10 to 12 year shelf lives, and they just didn't. And something happens, and two stars don't get along. Somebody leaves, somebody gets hurt, and then all of a sudden the window's over. And I do think that's what informed the motivation behind the trades they made last year. I still think they gave up too much for Harris, but whatever. The team they came within a couple plays of beating Toronto, who won the title. And now I like this year's team more than last year's team. It's funny. I have a lot of Sixers fans in my life. They were like rock bottom about 4 hours ago because it seemed like Butler was out going to Miami. It wasn't even clear if they were going to be involved with the sign and trade. And it was like, well, who are we getting? We're just getting Tobias Harris. Then JJ left. And it really did seem like the window was slim and closed all of a sudden. Now it's wide open again. And even better for them, the Celtics are worse. I think the Bucks are a little bit worse unless Giannis has another jump to make. And Toronto, who knows? So I think Philly's probably the reliable bet in the East, I would say. Brooklyn is the team that got the most dramatically better. We're going to talk about them in a second. But Durant's not playing next year, so they can't be considered a finals favorite, right?
No, I have them third in the East right now, pending Kawhi. They might drop to fourth.
Third?
Yeah. Who?
With no KD?
The Nets?
What?
Yeah, I mean, that's the ceiling. Their ceiling is third in the East.
Oh, their ceiling. I got
the Celtics
you.
yet. Okay. Yeah. The best they can hope for in the Eastern Conference this coming year is third. That means they also have to get over Indiana. I mean, I love what Indiana did. Like, very quietly on the sly, they put 3 guards in place that pretty complementary skill sets that really made the pain of losing Bojan Bogdanovic, who I still love. I mean, we had him for half a season in Washington. He was like a super reliable scorer, and his defense, he tries. It's not he's not a complete zero on defense. He tries, but they really eased the pain of that. They got Brogdon. They got Jeremy Lamb, and who am I forgetting?
No, that was it. And before they got TJ Warren a couple weeks ago.
And TJ
they're
Warren,
definitely a little bit better. Yeah, they're in
pretty good.
The 4, 5, 6 range. One more thing with the Sixers. So the big hole for them, that lineup they have is really fascinating defensively, where you have Embiid, Horford, Simmons, Richardson, and Harris conceivably as the crunch time 5, with Simmons as the point guard. Now, if let's say they're going against Kyrie in round 1, I don't know which of those 5 guys guards Kyrie, Dame Lillard, basically any Kemba Walker, any smaller guard. They still have one more signing, it feels like, is my point, because that they have a lot of height. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a name out there. There's a guy that I love, especially for them, and I think attitude-wise, it's a perfect match. Can they afford Patrick Beverley?
Well, after seeing some of the salaries, we're going to go through some of the salaries today. I mean, we live in a world where Terry Rozier is going to make $19 million a year. So I don't know what that means. Patrick Beverley's worth.
That's Wizards world is what that is.
Defensively, though, that Sixers team, Horford has the ability to switch and guard all kinds of guys. Simmons, when he wants to be, can be pretty good. And then from a rebounding standpoint, it's just a fascinating team. We haven't seen a team like that in a while, where Richardson's going to be the shortest guy in the crunch time 5 potentially. I like Richardson. I got to say, I haven't seen. Obviously watch Miami on League Pass and stuff, but don't really have a feel for him yet. Seems like he has a lot of potential. Good 3-point shooter, not great. He's like 35%. Seems like somebody whose career is still getting better, but he's the wild card of this whole thing. We'll see. Yeah, versus like not getting anything for Jimmy Butler, it's still pretty nice for them.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, they lost JJ and got kind of a 25-year-old. He's 9 years younger. Let's see, he's plug and play. Let's see how he does.
I was making fun of Chris Ryan all day today that the Ringer inadvertently ruined the Sixers and Embiid Simmons window with the story last year. That shook up the front office and led to a whole bunch of mistakes. But now the Sixers are back on track. I think Chris Ryan could sleep again at night. Thank God. So many things happen. I don't even really know where to begin. we had this earlier 6 p.m. ET June 30th free agency where stuff was going to start happening. And then meanwhile, stuff started happening all month. And by the time we got to today, we knew where Kemba Walker was going and we knew where Kyrie was going. Had a feeling a couple other things were going to happen. Seemed like Horford was gone, et cetera, et cetera. House, I got to say, I really like the new rules, or I guess we should say the non-rules, the looking away from what the actual rules are rules. I like what they did this year. I think it was more effective. Do you like it?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's not often that I can think of a specific instance where I was in your company and we were in the company of a high-ranking NBA official. It was Summer League 2018, and he said, guys, tell me a couple things that we could do better. And it was just after, same time of year, we just went through the free agency period, and one of the things that came out of your mouth was, this midnight start to free agency is a effing murder. It kills everybody. It kills the East Coast. It kills the West Coast. Can't we move it up by 6 hours? Can't we just start a little bit earlier? And lo and behold, 6 o'clock start time to the free agency period on June the 30th. So from your lips to the NBA God's ears, I mean, I can't give you total credit, but that's a damn good suggestion. And on top of that, the whole process got going all day today. So the news was coming out in a very orderly manner. It wasn't a complete pants down free for all where I felt like, I was having to search around for my underwear for 2 hours. I just liked the kind of pace of it. It was pretty good. What do you think?
I wasn't going to brag about that Vegas conversation, but I did suggest that. I don't think I was the only one. I was looking at it from a selfish standpoint. Because just from a Ringer standpoint, yeah, well, from a Ringer content standpoint, the thing's 12:01 ET, which was 9 o'clock PT, and we have to do podcasts and write stuff, and it just made it impossible. Like you could maybe write a thing or do a couple short tweets or whatever, but you can't really get content that late at night unless you're trying to kill your people that work for you. This was a lot more palatable. And what was really cool was it really started getting going, I would say 3 p.m., 4 p.m. ET.
Yeah.
So
exactly. I loved it.
We started getting a feel for stuff. I like it. They've basically decided to look the other way and said to themselves and to everybody else, look, once we get to the finals, we know shit's going down. Just don't do anything illegal, but we get it. You're going to be you have 75 roundabout ways of getting in touch with whoever. The funniest thing was Al Horford. Basically, I think the Celtics offered him 3 for $85, and it looked like it was heading that way. And then all of a sudden, he's like, "I'm out." And during the old system, you'd be like, "All right, what's going on here? Somebody's tampering." But now it's like, "All right, cool." Meanwhile, the Celtics are talking to Kemba Walker. That obviously happened way before. So I thought this was a lot better. I thought it moved a lot more fluidly. The big story, the Brooklyn Nets. They landed
biggest story.
They landed KD and they landed Kyrie. I'm not going to mention the DeAndre Jordan part. I thought that was funny that people are positioning that as a big three. DeAndre Jordan's been washed for 2 years. I don't know where everybody was on that, but
he's washed.
Would it surprise you if the Nets were worse just next year than they were this year?
No, not a bit. It wouldn't surprise me. We know that these chemistry experiments can be challenging. We know that it can be difficult to integrate guys. We don't have we don't have perfect insight into whether or not Kyrie is going to be healthy. We just saw an example of Kyrie with a youngish set where he wanted to try and exert some influence and, kind of shape some youth with his veteran perspective. It didn't go perfectly. So, the Nets have an identity. They clearly, as an institution, had a perspective that bringing Kyrie and KD in, they can handle it. They can manage both of those big personalities, both of those mega brands. And so good on the Nets for making it happen, but nothing is assured. All that's going to happen is Kyrie Irving is going to be playing point guard instead of D'Angelo Russell for that team. That's an upgrade. How much of an upgrade? I don't know. Are the Nets going to be able to be healthy all year? I hope so, because I want to see what Karis LeVert can do. I want to see what Allen can do. I want to see what Dinwiddie can do with Kyrie. And, DeAndre will be out there for 22 minutes running around and doing DeAndre things.
Great.
DeAndre and Kyrie is a good pick and roll, right?
Yeah, in 2014. The Nets, Kyrie, Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, Taurean Prince, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen. Still some maybe spots for two guys. The rest of the East got better. They basically have just exchanged Russell for Kyrie. I don't think it's realistic for them to contend next season. This is a long-term, 2 years from now thing. I think more important was this was the first time they truly stole New York from the Knicks. Now, I think this has been overblown to some degrees. I think the Knicks fans aren't switching. And we've also we saw it 4 or 5 years ago when they had Darren Williams and they got KG and Pierce and all that stuff. Like they were relevant to Joe Johnson, but the Knicks had Carmelo during that stretch, and the Knicks had made a run in 2013. And it was more adorable that the Nets were trying to compete with them. They had the crazy Russian owning them and all that stuff. This was different because everyone thought KD and Kyrie were going to the Knicks basically from January on, including myself and you and Sal, and we may or may not have ragered on this. It really did feel like a New York type thing. And then the Nets stepped in and took them. And there was just something significant about it that KD and Kyrie wanted to play in New York, had the choice between the two teams, and chose the Nets and chose Brooklyn. I feel like that actually really does matter. I don't know if it changes the equation of, are there going to be more Nets fans? Are the Nets going to be the team of the future in New York? Has Dolan ruined the Knicks to the point that the Nets could actually steal that corner? But if all of that stuff does happen, this will be the moment that we look back on. Do you agree?
I do. I have a lot of questions. I have more questions than answers at this point in terms of the long-term planning and the, dialogue that we imagine Kyrie and KD were having. It has been reported that KD's thinking changed when he injured himself. And I'm trying to connect the dots there. Why would his thinking have changed as a result of his injury? What's your theory on that?
I think there was a world 2 months ago where KD, Kyrie, and Anthony Davis were on the Knicks. Or at the worst case scenario, it was just KD and Kyrie. I think the injury changed everything. And I think we're going to learn all of these little tidbits. They're going to get sprinkled to us over the next few weeks and months. And I'm sure there's going to be some revisionist history. But I just don't think you spend your whole year planning on what you're going to do for the third part of your career and you're just gravitating to Brooklyn over the Knicks. I don't believe it. Like, I know people have talked about what a win this is for a great organization, and they have good ownership and good young players. They built things the right way, and they stole this opportunity from the Knicks, all that stuff. I think that's somewhat true, but I really do think in my heart of hearts, if he doesn't get hurt, I think him and Kyrie end up on the Knicks. I really do. But now, I might be wrong. It's just how I feel.
The point that you just made about the superior position of Brooklyn in terms of their development and their ability to compete. They made the playoffs this year in the Eastern Conference. Isn't that only relevant in the instance of KD's injury? Like, if KD was not injured, we expect that he and Kyrie would have landed on the Knicks. KD's injury changed everything. This is my question to you.
Yeah, I think it did. And I also think, once you get closer to actually making the decision and you're not playing basketball anymore and you're really getting into it, it's like I would say it's like getting engaged practically. And at some point when you're about to get engaged, you talk to a couple of your friends, the ones you really trust, and you go, hey, man, thinking about doing this. What do you think? And they're going to give you an honest answer because they're your friends. I think at least with Dolan and the Knicks, there hits a point here where they're really starting to think about doing this. And he has this catastrophic injury. He's not going to be able to play for a year. He's got to also convince, somebody else to go with him. And at that point, Kyrie's out, right? Why would Kyrie go to the Knicks to play with a lottery team? Why would he throw away a year of his career? At least with the Nets, he has a chance to make the playoffs, stuff like that. That's one part. And then the other part is, I promise you, people are telling him like the Knicks are a shit show. Don't go there. Dolan's the worst. You don't want to play for that guy. Here's 3 James Dolan stories. And then and that stuff adds up. And I really think, to me, this is more about where the Knicks are for the last 20 years than it is a KD decision. Dolan has made that place so unappealing that ultimately KD was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm not going to go there. Because honestly, what made the most sense was him going there and them throwing away another year and, getting RJ Barrett some reps, him rehabbing his leg. And then next summer, them really trying to make a run for it over the next 3 years. I think that made the most basketball business career sense. And he didn't want to do it. Now he's doing it with this Nets team instead. It's just weird that it all led to this, to play for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know.
The weird thing is the Nets are better. The Nets were better all season long.
Yes.
So the question to me is like, at what point did it go from Knicks to Nets? Because, the injury had to be the thing. It had to be the accelerating force. It had to be the thing that with the pivot, because we didn't hear. I have to go back and see when the very first reports of Kyrie's interest in Brooklyn started trickling out, because that really, to me, set it in motion. It had been the popular narrative.
It was the Rock Nation.
Go ahead.
No, it was the Rock Nation thing. It
Yeah.
was when he dumped his agent and signed with the new agent. It was over because he signed with an agent whose twin brother, was running the Nets, and he did this whole Rock Nation thing. And that's when we knew. But I don't think anybody had any inkling until then that this was actually really going to happen. So, the Brooklyn thing, there's one more piece we didn't talk about. And this is something that I think mattered to KD when he went to the Warriors. There's outside basketball stuff and outside basketball reasons for both of these guys to do this. I think with Kyrie, it's obvious he's going to get more involved with Rock Nation and that whole thing. Like there's a world in which you could really make a sell if those guys are in the room. Here are all the things we can do with you. We can put you in this, we can put you in that. We have access to these guys. We know these rich guys, and you're just kind of, the red ropes are lifting for you in a lot of different ways. When you go to the Knicks, none of that is happening from James Dolan. James Dolan's not like, hey, once you get here, I'll do this. And he doesn't have connections like that. And I actually think that's a detriment for them now, because Brooklyn, not only do they have like the Rock Nation and the elite Brooklyn businessmen, all these different connections, but they also have the Alibaba thing. And I just think they bring more to the table from a non-basketball standpoint. I think that really matters to Durant and to Rich Kleiman, and probably to Kyrie too. But does that make sense, or am I overthinking this?
No, I think that makes a ton of sense, because that's for the stage of career that KD is at. That's the legacy opportunity that makes complete sense for him. It's got to be in the same way that LeBron's move was a legacy, not just career defining, but like what are the next 5 chapters of my life look like? Kind of decision making. That he and KD, I think, were coming at it from that same kind of perspective. Kyrie's young, so Kyrie, it seems like less important to me. Although it certainly doesn't hurt to be in that position and ride the tailwinds of what those opportunities are going to look like out of Brooklyn. But I don't know. I mean, the Knicks are the Knicks. It's a worldwide iconic, brand. They play in Madison Square effing Garden, and I think there's still some chapters left to be written for the Knicks. I mean, they swung and missed in this free agency, and they needed, the good luck of Zion. If that had broken, if Zion had landed with the number one pick, how different would this have looked, do you think?
That's a good segue. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to answer that. So you asked me how much did the lottery. I actually think this is one of the most influential lotteries we've had for how it shaped the next couple months of moves and things, because, it allowed the Lakers to finally have enough to pull the Anthony Davis trade off. Not just that they had another asset, but it kind of crippled the Knicks. The worst case scenario for the Knicks was New Orleans getting the first pick and then the Lakers moving into the top four. So that finished off both of those things. The Zion part, New Orleans being, in a weird way, a competitor to the Knicks, even though the Knicks would have had to trade for Anthony Davis, like that just complicated everything. I think from a Durant standpoint, the combo of how the lottery played out and then him getting hurt were pretty fluky. Don't you think? Like, first of all, the odds of Durant getting hurt when he was playing the highest level he'd ever played, he just randomly gets hurt. Like that, the odds of that are 1 in 200. And then the way the lottery played out, considering what the odds were, the Pelicans were like, what were they, 8th? The Lakers were like 11th for it to play out, where they go 1-4. It just makes you think, like, are the fates against the Knicks? But I will say this, though, with the Knicks, I was thinking about it. The last couple of years, they were actually in a better position to do what the Nets did than the Nets were, because they had Porzingis, and they had 2 top 10 lottery picks. They had the pick that where they could have taken Donovan Mitchell, and they took Frankie Nicotine. They had the Knox pick. Those are 2 top 10 picks. The Nets didn't never even draft in the top 10. Plus, Porzingis was a way better asset than anybody the Nets had, and they were tanking anyway. And the Nets were going the opposite way. They weren't totally tanking, and they were trying to build this, they didn't have a reason to tank. They didn't have a pick, and they're trying to build this culture and taking a chance on dudes. And they're the ones that are doing like the D'Angelo Russell trades, where they're taking salary with their cap space. The Knicks are spending their cap space on Tim Hardaway and Courtney Lee and people like that. They just kind of got outmaneuvered and outthought by the Nets for a couple years there. And now the Knicks are in this situation where they're trying to emulate the Nets from a couple years ago. Like, even they signed Julius Randle today, and that's a 2-year deal with a team option for a third. But now they're in this mode where everything they do is going to be shorter deals, protect cap space, build, and hope Giannis wants to go there in 2021. It's the illusion of hope yet again, Joe House. The Knicks have done it for 20 years. It's always like, this next guy's coming up in 1 year, 2 years. Maybe we can get this guy. And their fans fall for it every time. And I fall for it every time. I thought KD was going there. The illusion of hope, Joe House.
I mean, they have had a couple of moments. I mean, they had Linsanity. That was a pretty great moment. They
3
got
weeks.
about 25 or 30 games out of Mari Stoudemire before he turned into a pumpkin. Your boy Melo was good for them. He gave them an identity for like a couple years. And I don't think that the teardown, the way that they crafted it, was that ill-advised. Like, I'm not sure that they ultimately are going to lose on the Porzingis trade, because we don't yet know whether he's a guy that can play, 80 basketball games. He's a 7-footer with an incredible stroke, and so far an injury tendency. Now, one catastrophic injury, but who knows when he comes back how he's going to be. I thought they did a good job of avoiding that problem altogether and getting some decent assets and putting themselves in a decent position to swing for the fences as free agency. The fact that they struck out this year isn't really the end of the story for the Knicks. It's a
there's
low point. It doesn't
there's
feel
no free
great.
agents next year. No, there's no free agents next year. So they struck out for this year and next year.
Yeah, but the thing that we found in the last, I don't know, it feels like a 24-month phenomena, 18-month. If you're in a position where somebody grows disgruntled, we have this new era of disgruntled stars. And if you're a team that can suck up cap, has the cap availability, and happens to be in New York City and playing at Madison Square Garden, it's a pretty attractive allure. Like, they could be in the ear. Like, who knows who's going to be the next disgruntled star? It could be a guy from Washington. Who? Huh?
I mean, look, I don't have a dog in this fight. The Celtics and Knicks aren't rivals. The Knicks have been, other than a couple stretches, have just been terrible for 70 years. I do think their name is pretty much mud within the league now. I really do. I think there's going to have to be a lot of rehab. And it's one of those things where the moment Dolan sells the team, if he ever does, then it becomes the most appealing situation in the league to be part of a new ownership and a rebuild and a new era for the Knicks. But right now, he's still there. He's not going anywhere. Well, and he's a fucking nightmare. Like, what about the press conference when he barred the Daily News reporters? Who does that?
This is
what is he, like Donald Trump? Get the fuck out of here.
This is where the league needs to intervene. He doesn't have to sell the team. He just needs to not be the face of the franchise. Like, we have enough evidence. We don't need any more evidence. We are now officially beyond a reasonable doubt. Him as the face of the franchise is an effing disaster. It's an F triple minus. So he can keep owning. He can be the majority owner. They need some, bright and shiny new face to come in and be smiling. Like, it's New York City. There are lots and lots and lots of influential human beings that can arrive in that city and immediately rehabilitate the image of the franchise. One guy, by the way, who might have that impact, who's expressed some interest in some NBA ownership. It's the guy that a lot of people wish was on this podcast tonight instead of me, Bill Simmons. What about one Barack H. Obama? What about him joining up with the Knicks ownership group and becoming the face of the franchise? Would that work?
I mean, it's a noble thought, but there's two issues with it. One, Dolan is such a stubborn dick. There's no way he would ever give up any ownership, and he would bristle at the notion that somebody else could come in and help save his image or like his hold on the frame. He would never do that. And then second, you think Barack wants James Dolan in his life? Like, honestly, you think he's like going to home with Michelle after dinner? Well, like, hey, I got this opportunity. I can own a small piece of the Knicks, but now I have James Dolan in my life for the next 10 years. Get the fuck out of here. I mean,
I'm not Jacko. I'm not taking this in a political direction, but I mean, he had 8 years of Joe Biden. after we see a couple months of Joe Biden out there on his own now without the cover. I mean, was that a picnic?
That's pretty good. Can I walk you through the last 20 years of the Knicks really quickly and all of their new reset buttons?
I mean, it feels gratuitous, but I know I'm going to enjoy it. So let's
you're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy this. So's the audience, except for the Knicks fans. So they make the 1999 finals, right? The reset button first was the Ewing trade to Seattle, which was allegedly, again, they're going to move on, build around Houston, Camby, and Spree, the whole thing. Nope. Antonio McDyess. Remember that? Big trade for McDyess. They traded the lottery pick that ended up being Mars Stoudemire. That didn't work out. Stephon Marbury. We're going all in on Stephon. Bringing him home. 2004.
Starbury's coming home.
He's New York City point guard. Nobody knows point guards like New York City. That didn't work. Eddie Curry. Need a big man. It's going to be Eddie Curry and Zach Randolph. We're going back to bully ball. Whole league's getting faster. We're going to pound people inside. That didn't work. 2008 and 2009, those seasons heading into the summer of 2010. Remember that? It was 2 years of we're going to tank because we're getting LeBron. He's coming. LeBron's coming. He's going to bring Bosh. It's going to be great. We're bringing those. We're doing it, man. It's weird. Throw away these 2 years. It's going to be awesome. That didn't work. He went to Miami. They settled for Amari Stoudemire. That season, heading into February, it's like Carmelo wants to come here. We could have Amari and Carmelo. We're going to trade everything for Carmelo. Bring him in. Get Chauncey Billups. Amnesty Chauncey Billups. Bring in Tyson Chandler. Now we got the big three. Here we go. Those were the next couple years. They didn't get farther than round 2. Building around Carmelo. 2014, you remember what happened? You know what the reset button was that year? You remember?
I don't.
This is tough. It's tough to keep all this track. Phil Jackson. He's coming home.
Oh.
Phil Jackson's going to save it, man. 69, 73 Knicks. He was there. He knows what it takes. That lasted 2 years. 2015 and 16. It's all leading to the summer of 2016. We're going to have cap space. Phil Jackson's got it. He's going to figure it out. No, nobody wanted to come. Tim Hardaway, Courtney Lee. Boom. Now, next 2 years, we're going to rebuild around Porzingis. We finally have our guy. We have a unicorn. We just got to build around and play the long game. That didn't really work out. 2019, trade Porzingis. Here we go. We're going to get KD and Kyrie. It's got to happen. We got all this cap space. We got 80 million. We cleared all this cap. No, that didn't work out. What's the new game plan? 2021. Here we go. Giannis, he's going to come. I know he grew up in Greece and has no idea what it was like when the Knicks were good, but he's coming. It's never going to work, Joe. Ever. That's your Knicks reset button in the span of 3 minutes.
Wow. You left out two prominent names. We didn't even talk about Joakim Noah or Derrick Rose.
Oh, I forgot those guys. Sorry. I had 15 reset buttons. I left out 2. My bad. Yeah. I forgot about Joakim Noah. What was that, 2016? Oh, that was with the, that was with the Courtney Lee. Yeah, God, can't even keep track.
Isaiah
the
Thomas,
Knicks are screwed.
Jerome James, the back of the SUV.
Can I be this is going to be perceived as me being a dick because Kyrie was on the Celtics. Can I just be a dick for 1 second?
Please do.
It's a whole victory parade, right? Brooklyn got KD and Kyrie. I just want to point this out. I'm going to try to do this in the non-dickiest way possible. KD can't walk. He has a ruptured Achilles. He can't play for a year. And Kyrie, his season went so badly last year that we started doing internet Instagram videos of my head on Johnny Depp as Hunter Thompson's head and Kyrie on the other guy's head, of me driving him to the airport to get him away from the Celtics. If you did a poll of Celtics fans right now, how many of them are going to miss Kyrie? What's the percentage? It would be like 2%. It was a disaster in every respect. He is going to go down as one of the most disliked Boston athletes we've had. How much of that was his fault compared to the rest of the team? We could litigate that forever. But I'm just saying, everyone is happy he left. So I know Brooklyn's excited they have him. He's going to be great for them the first couple months. But I'm just saying, like, just be careful. Be careful what you wish for with Kyrie. Just be careful. Is that fair?
Well, I have one crucial difference to call to your attention.
Please.
And it's this. We're not aware. I'm not aware of the Brooklyn Nets taking out a giant machete-sized knife and stabbing any of their young up-and-coming players that overextended themselves, that played injured, that were due for a giant payroll. I mean, a giant payday. They did none of those. I don't think Brooklyn stabbed any 5'11" players in the back on the moment of their payday. The curse of Isaiah Thomas is not to be trifled with, Bill Simmons, when it comes to your Boston Celtics. And I think, the Celtics are still feeling it. I mean, who would have thunk? Here we are, starting in 2013, that trade between the Celtics and the Nets, and on balance, like, it's kind of interesting the way that all that's played out. A lot of assets have flowed to Boston, and we've had a couple Eastern Conference, runs at the Eastern Conference Finals, and took Cleveland to 7 games in 1 year. Pretty good, but never really threatening to make the NBA finals.
No,
right?
never going to win the title. No, we almost made the finals, but that team was never winning the title. So yeah, I'm with you on the karma thing, and believe me, I've thought about it a lot. It wasn't great, and you can definitely point to that as something that with the whole Eastern Conference Finals run aside from a year ago, it wasn't great. But look, there's a very good chance that it was just the worst possible situation for everybody, and that Kyrie is going to go to the Nets and be really good next year and just be happy. And maybe he was with the wrong teammates and the wrong coach in the wrong city. And in Brooklyn, he's going to be a little older, a little wiser. I'm not ruling it out. This to me is not like getting somebody who's just like, wow, what are you guys, it's not like if somebody had signed Andre Blatch, like when Andre Blatch left the Wizards, who was the next team that signed him? You were just laughing.
I think it was the Nets.
Yeah, and you're just laughing. You're like, that's hilarious that you think Andre Blatch is redeemable. I'm not like that. I think there's a world in which Kyrie is like just awesome next year. But I also saw the bad side of Kyrie, and it's hard to shake because, and you saw it. Well, you watched those Bucks Celtics games. He rolled over in that series, did he not?
He did, but the curious thing with the Celtics is your franchise was confronted with an identity crisis like within the first 5 minutes of Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving supposedly playing together, right? Like everything changed 5 minutes into the first game of the first season of them playing together, and it turned out that it wasn't capable of being salvaged. So that can happen, right? Like those are you were supposed to be in a very stable situation. I mean, I hate to remind you of your forecast for how many games the team might win this most recent season with those two guys back, but like everything can change so quickly. It's very hard. I'm glad that you're being generous. I think Kyrie can be successful with the Nets. He learned lessons in Boston, and I do think the Nets, in terms of their front office and the composition of their youth, it's a little different from the composition of what Boston had. And none of the Nets, all the Nets have under their belts, those young guys, is a first round loss in the playoffs, in 5 games.
Hold on, House.
Yeah.
Before you praise the Nets off front office too effusively, they've come to terms with DeAndre Jordan. Do you want to guess what the contract was? It is now 10:02 Eastern time. Pay. What do you think the contract was?
I'm going to say 3 years, $55 million.
Oh my God. How many Pacificos did you have?
I told you 5.
4 years, 40.
Okay. That's fair. What's wrong with that?
What are you talking about? What's fair?
$10 million.
DeAndre Jordan, did you watch him last season? What are you talking about?
It's chump change. It's nothing.
That's terrible. That's a terrible
I
contract.
assumed it was an overpay that KD insisted on.
That contract is borderline reprehensible, but I'm sure KD was like, look, you've just got to do this. I'm sorry. You got to take care of my guy.
LeBron did it for a lot of guys.
Do you think you're an innocent bystander. Do you think there's more to the KD Warriors stuff that is going to trickle out over the next 4 to 6 weeks? Because it seems like the narrative is KD just wanted to play with his friends, and his friends are apparently Kyrie and DeAndre Jordan. When he went to the Warriors, it was all about how he was close with Draymond Green and knew Curry, obviously, and he was going to play with those guys and new challenge at Golden State. Now it's like he wants to play with his friends. Do you think we'll ever fully know what happened in Golden State with Durant and that team?
I think a couple stories will come out. I think we'll get a sharper image of what was at the heart of the beef between Draymond and KD over the course of this season. But I don't think Draymond and KD had a long friendship that preceded KD coming over to the Warriors. I think that Draymond was the Warrior whisperer as kind of the spiritual leader of that team. And I think he was in KD's ear, as reported by Woj, and that we were skeptical about it. But I think Draymond was in KD's ear for a good portion of the second half of that last season with OKC before he jumped over. And then, the circumstances played out the way that OKC lost in that finals, and Draymond, proved to be a pretty good salesman. I don't know if they were friends at any point over the course of them playing together. They got along fine, it seems, until whatever happened this season, and the mutual interest in kicking everybody's ass has a galvanizing kind of effect, and they were pretty good at it. But I don't know. I don't know anything about like the relationship component.
Something's off. I'm sure we'll find out at some point in our life. By the way, Woj reported that KD and Kyrie took less than the max to allow DeAndre Jordan to get to $10 million a year with Brooklyn.
Sure, why not?
Let's take one more break. So, a lot of shit happened today. We got to rip through it really quickly because we're putting this up tonight. There were a lot of cool contracts. I'm just going to go through some of them, and we can do our instant reactions. Celtics get Kemba for 4 years, $141 million. I guess I can talk about this whole Kemba thing in the Celtics later in the summer in the pod because we've done too much Celtics talk. I will say it's kind of staggering how bad his teammates were for his entire time in Charlotte. Like genuinely staggering. I don't think any good player has played with worse players. Is where I would go.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he's capable of in this situation. To me, he's a poor man's Kyrie. He's a rich man's Isaiah Thomas. I feel like he's a better fit for this iteration of the Celtics. It's a real shame that the Celtics lost Horford because I think we would have got the best version of Kemba with Horford, but the Celtics still have a move or two. They have to get somebody over 6 feet 8 inches tall on their basketball team to help them try and collect rebounds this season. So I guess we'll see, but
I have my fingers crossed for Robin Lopez. They might have to patch together. I think it's probably the easiest position in the league to patch together and try to find somebody. I talked about this a little in the last podcast, but their upside, they're not a title contender anymore. I don't think they're one move away from being a title contender, which I think is important because I think they were in no man's land before. Now they're a team, they're kind of like a few Wizards teams you've rooted for in the past, right? Like the Jameson Arenas Wizards or like even the Wall Beal Wizards where it's like your ceiling is 47 of 50 wins and you could get frisky and maybe take somebody to game 7 in round 2, but you're not going to actually do anything. But they have the chance now potentially to add one more piece of the picks they have. So somebody sent me this list. All of the players that Charlotte have paid more in a given season than they paid Kemba Walker in any year that they had him on the team. Here's the complete list. Ben Gordon, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Cody Zeller, Marvin Williams, Bismack Biyombo, Al Jefferson, Dwight Howard, Nick Batum, and now Terry Rozier. All of those guys made more than Kemba ever made for Charlotte. He peaked at $12 million. Just a really poorly run team. I actually think, just quickly on Charlotte, they have probably the saddest roster anyone has put together in a while.
Tap the brakes, brother.
No, you got Bradley Beal. You have Bradley Beal on your team. They don't have anybody.
Okay.
Who's their marquee guy? Malik Monk? Bridges? Zeller? Like they have nobody. Wiggins. They're barren.
It's going to be, yeah. Yeah, they did not extend a qualifying offer to Frank Kaminsky. I'm sorry to report.
It's shades of like Brooklyn in the mid 2010s when it was super dark after the KG Pierce trade and they had no lottery picks. And it was just like, a barren. It was Brook Lopez and nothing. It was a barren wasteland. This team might actually be worse, but holy shit. I mean, we talk about Dolan needs to sell the Knicks. Might be time, MJ. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if ownership is the move for you. Might need to bring in some help. So anyway, so Kemba happened. Tobias Harris, 180 for 5. Milwaukee brought Chris Middleton back, $178 million. Orlando locked down Nick Vucevic for 4 for 100. And then Terrence Ross, 4 for 54. Al-Farouq Aminu they brought in for 3 for $29. Kevin Clark, the Ringer's own, the only Orlando fan I've ever met, was absolutely delighted that they've almost hit the luxury tax with the 7 seed. Pretty impressive, House.
I mean, that's a 44-win team, possibly.
Yeah,
if
let's go. 44 wins. We got this.
You forgot Brook Lopez re-signed with Milwaukee, by the way.
I haven't gotten him yet. I had him on a different list.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was doing all the giant numbers. So Butler was 142, Horford 4 for 109. D'Angelo Russell is the only all-star or superstar who hasn't signed yet. So then we going a little out of order, but Sacramento 4 for 86 for Harrison Barnes, which I don't know. What does that feel like? 20 million too high, but how are they going to get anybody anyway? They got to pay the Sacramento tax. Then they spent 3 for 40 on Dwayne Dedmon. And then they went and got Trevor Ariza for 2 for 25. House, you watched Trevor Ariza last year. He played for your beloved Wizards. Not a lot left in the tank, it didn't feel like.
Who knows what he had left in the tank? What incentive did he have to come here to Washington and go bust his ass at all? By the time he arrived, the writing was so on the wall. It was so on the John wall. Such a terrible moment in Washington franchise history. Who knows whether or not Trevor Ariza? I think that's not a bad. He's still smart. He still knows where to be on the basketball court. That counts for something.
So you're saying you're signing off on $151 million for Harrison Barnes, Trevor Ariza, and Dwayne Dedmon.
It feels like a lot.
feels a tad high. Feels a whiff lofty. We both like Malcolm Brogdon. Did you like him enough if you're Indiana to trade a first and 2 seconds and pay him 4 years, $85 million?
Indiana, God bless them. They have this ambition. They really think that they're going to crack that 55 to 62 win threshold. And I think, must have a perspective. Their view must be that Toronto is not going to be capable. Even if Kawhi does a 1-1, the window for Toronto is closing. And so Indiana wants to be in that top 3 category with the Sixers and Milwaukee, and they just push the chips to the middle. I don't really have any problem with it.
So they basically flip Brogdon for flip Bogdanovich for Brogdon. TJ Warren, I thought TJ Warren was a steal, and
me too.
That was the kind of trade if that happened in our fantasy league, that would lead to 100 emails, and it would get insulting, and at some point people would be challenging each other to a fight. It was just terrible. They built this weird team where they have all perimeter guys who can create their own shot, and then Miles Turner and Sabonis. It's like a one or the other type team, but I kind of like it. Just a lot of guys who can attack off the dribble, a little bit like what Toronto had last year, where all of their guards and forwards can now create their own shot in some way, and then they have rebounding and defense. So it's interesting. I don't think they're going to win the title, but I kind of liked what they did.
Me too.
Lopez to Milwaukee, 4 for 52. Utah, we got to talk about them. Bogdanovich, 4 years, $73 million. I really liked him. And I thought he let you down in the playoffs in Washington, especially in the Boston series. But in Indiana, I thought the last 2 years, I thought he was terrific. Really liked him.
Me too.
I
didn't really feel like he let us down, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, he wasn't great. But Utah was in a situation where they were a good regular season team, and they would get to the playoffs, and it became clear pretty quickly that it was basically the Donovan Mitchell show. They had nobody else who could create a shot except for Joe Ingles, but in the playoffs, he's Joe Ingles. Now they have Conley running everything. Mitchell can play off the ball more. And Bogdanovich can create his own shot now. Now they have the potential. They could play Conley and Mitchell, Bogdanovich and Ingles with just Gobert. Just all he's doing is rebounding and defending the rim. I kind of like it, House. And I know they're going to get a lot of sleeper buzz as the summer goes along, but it just is a team that makes more sense as a playoff team than it did.
It's already started, the sleeper buzz. I mean, there's already my Twitter timeline is already filled with like, get your bets in now on Utah, and I kind of want to put one in. I couldn't find any odds for them. I don't know what this does in terms of their ability to retain Favors, and it's not.
I think
like
Favors is done. I think that
okay.
ship is going to sail.
To keep him now. Okay, all right. Because I thought he was pretty good as a backup in that backup role.
You can get a cheap version of that though.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So Utah right now, I'm looking online 15-1.
I don't hate it.
It's kind of high. Why?
I like them to win the Western Conference. I like that better. I don't want to bet on them to win the championship, but I do like the idea of them winning the Western Conference.
Why is Brooklyn 18-1? That's just dumb. Brooklyn's not winning jack shit. Maybe 2 years from now, but not next year. Denver at 25-1 seems dumb. That seems too high.
That's the most interesting one to me right now because they have a move. They have assets. If there's any team in the NBA that I thought had a legit chance at getting Bradley Beal, I think it's the Denver Nuggets. And I think that's an interesting team if they're able to do it. If they did something like Gary Harris and I don't know, somebody.
I hope you want more than that. You got to get.
No, you want. I'm saying a pick. Harris and
Porter, you got to get Michael Porter.
Right. Now you're talking. That's a deal. Like I would really, really consider that if I was Washington.
No, that's not enough.
And Bradley,
I think Portland's the team if you're going to trade Bradley Beal. That's the team that has the right mix of assets and young guys. Where
I wonder if Beal is he going to get enough touches on that team?
I don't know. I mean, Denver is a better fit for him. You're right. Like if it could be Gary Harris and Porter Jr. Who was the guy they picked this year in the draft? That people like the guy.
I like.
No, they took another guy.
Did they get
we liked.
Well,
they got him, but they got him in the second round. They got somebody else that I like. But Portland could do the Zach Collins and Anthony Simons and expiring contracts and some picks and really kind of try to overpay for him. But listen, I'm already on the record with you. I think you should keep Beal. Just wait it out. The dude's 25. He's really good. I wouldn't trade him. You're just basically.
I'm not in a hurry to.
Yeah, I would wait until it was a complete overpay. Julius Randle, 3 years, 63, but really it's 2-year deal. There's a team option. The Rozier trade or signing was just a jaw dropper for me. 3 years, $58 million. We were on a chain with a Knicks fan that we're friends with, and my dad and you, and our Knicks fan friend was pushing for Rozier, like just kind of more intel. Hey, if we got this guy, is that a good thing? And I had to bring my dad in to give his season ticket holder scouting report to Rozier. He was really bad last year and is somebody that is basically like a 38, 39% career shooter. And that's who he is. He doesn't get to the free throw line. He's a good rebounder. I think he's a pretty good defender. I don't think after watching him, especially this year, I'm not sure he's a starting point guard on a playoff team. And I don't know how he's like the best guy on a bad team. I think they're going to regret that contract House. Not a fan.
I mean, it hardly matters. Like
it doesn't matter. It's just I feel bad for them. It's like, oh man, Jesus, do you have scouts? Ricky Rubio goes to Phoenix for 3 for 51. And then the other one we should talk about is Redick going to New Orleans for 2 for 26. Redick, who was basically doing this year by year and somehow figured out a way to just keep getting paid a lot. He made $29.5 million in 2 years in Philly. And then he made 26 here for New Orleans. So he basically made almost 56 plus million for 4 years being JJ Redick. Pretty good House.
Age like 31 to 35, $60 million. That's my G right there. I mean, that's a dude who's taken stock of the league, looked at himself and said, you know what? I'm going to gamble on myself. He did it. He did it successfully. We knew that the Pelicans needed some kind of old head, some kind of stabilizing force. I honestly thought that Al Horford was headed to the Pelicans, but JJ is perfectly fine. By the way, I mean, we have to figure out how to. Maybe I'll just fly down there as a devoted and noted food lover. JJ Redick. Think about what he's going to be capable of down in New Orleans. I mean, incredible.
Oh, so you're saying, well, we didn't even mention, huge moment for the Ringer Podcast Network. JJ now in New Orleans on a really fun team. We have Zion access. This is great. Huge win all the way around. But you go down there, you and JJ do a little 3-day food thing.
Something,
book that.
Anything. Yeah, so it's just the opportunities are endless. That's all.
I like that he's a future media guy who already sees the floor like a media guy. He realizes, all right, I'm going to Philly. That's the new hot team. I'm going to immerse myself in that whole world. And now it's like, all right, Zion, that's the new hot team. He keeps jumping to the new hot team. Yeah, he's like an actor who keeps trying to go to the best show with the hot young kids. Good luck to JJ though. That's a great team for him. They needed one more shooter. I still think they're going to be good right away. I don't think they're going to be a 55-win team, but I think they're going to be a little bit above average. So, how will you remember today looking back? Oh, we last thing we didn't mention before you answer that question. Nothing with the Lakers yet. And the Lakers,
it breaks my heart.
Stop.
It's one or the other. It's going to be one or the other.
What do you mean?
And it's going to be D'Angelo Russell or Kawhi Leonard. I mean,
well, could be neither.
Inevitable?
It could be neither.
It could be neither. That would be my optimal case. Neither would be optimal. But God, it just feels like Kawhi said 2 years ago, I want to play for the Lakers. And then he just delivered a title to a place that had no chance whatsoever to contend for a title. He's made an indelible mark in the history of the National Basketball Association. He could go to Los Angeles Lakers and only have to play 65 games and come out in the playoffs again. God damn it. I don't like it. I'm not rooting for it, but there's a lot of logic to it.
I think there's a high possibility that they could get neither guy. Because Russell could go to Minnesota and Kawhi could go to the Clippers or just stay in Toronto.
Well, let me ask you this. This is the first time we've mentioned the Clippers.
Yeah.
What would be the case for Kawhi to go to the Clippers other than him wanting to be in Los Angeles?
That's it.
That's not a great case. I mean, to Toronto, that situation was much better for him. And then it's not like he said to the Spurs, I want to go to Toronto, but they were a lot sort of better team, better position in the Eastern Conference. What is there now that he's in control of his own destiny? What is there to
let's play it out.
The Clippers without other help?
Let's play it out. If you're him, you can't do 4 years in Toronto because you don't know who's on the team those last 3 years. It's you and Siakam, basically. But you could do a 1-1. You could be like, let's defend the title. Let's fucking do this. And I'll worry about free agency a year from now. Even if I get hurt, I just watched. Yeah, I watched all these injured stars get paid. Let's go.
Well, so he'll be a 10-year veteran. That's the other point. Like he gets that super duper max as a 10-year vet if he does the 1-1.
Other possibility, he goes to the Clippers. He's the guy in the Clippers, and they try to. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, we're almost out of free agents. Like, what do you do if you're them? You're like, hey, we're like, hey, we think we can get Kevon Looney. I don't know.
That's why I just said to you, it's the first time we mentioned the Clippers. It doesn't feel good. They're supposed to be in the mix. They're supposed to have a chance at 2 giant free agent signings, and it's 10:23 East Coast time, and we're just now talking about the Clippers.
There's a couple guys left that aren't free agents that we have to mention. One of them is named Kevin Love.
Oh yeah, okay. Now you're talking.
He's basically a free agent, right? You could trade for him from Cleveland. Cleveland is way over the cap, and I think they actually might be a luxury tax team. They actually have to. Actually, when they get rid of J.R. Smith's contract, it'll be fine. But they're over the cap. You could talk. You get trade. We'll trade for Kevin Love. We'll give you a conditional first or whatever, and maybe it's Kevin Love and Kawhi together with the rest of their team. I don't know if that makes a difference. I also think I was thinking Kevin Love with the Lakers too. If they struck out, could that be a possibility?
That makes sense to me.
Could he
would
go
be
to
a good
Portland?
fit for them.
Here's the other guy for the Clippers. What about Steven Adams?
Yeah. What about him?
OKC is well over the luxury tax by like 13 or 14 million bucks. And I think they would be a repeater team this year, which is a lot worse. So it does feel like Steven Adams could be had.
He can be had. Let me ask you this, though. What does that do for OKC? How does that help them? They don't
get slaughtered by the luxury tax.
The people that buy season tickets don't give a shit about the luxury tax. They want a competitive basketball team that has a chance to play in the NBA Finals, and they invested $525 million in Paul George and Russell Westbrook.
Nobody has ever paid the repeater tax, at least that I can remember, for a team that that didn't have any chance to win the title, which they don't. So
okay, well that's the determination they have to make, and they have to sell that to their fan base. We're not going to make the finals. We're going to move Adams. Here's the rationale why. It's just a tough pill to swallow after the mega extension for Westbrook that's barely 24 months old, and stealing, Paul George essentially, and keeping him when he was, it seemed by all indications, he was prepared to walk. That's your team. It's Paul George and Russell Westbrook and Steven Adams. What are you doing?
I know, but here's the thing. Adams wasn't that good last year, especially the last 3 months.
I agree.
And I think you can make the case if you're them, like, look, either way, we're not winning the title with Steven Adams. So why don't we could turn him into Zubac from the Clippers and save $23 million of payroll. And now we're not a luxury tax team. And then we actually have the potential to maybe add some more money versus right now we're absolutely crippled by our team. It's possible.
The window is closing. The problem is Russell Westbrook playing the way that he plays is,
you're right.
We've already seen it. It's a diminishing return position that they're in, and they haven't won a round in the playoffs yet since KD has left. So they have an existential crisis. They need to sort it out quickly. I'm not one to underestimate what Sam Presti's capable of. Another team we haven't talked about, speaking of a closing window, where are the Houston Rockets in all of this?
I mean, they created a 48-hour story last week that we openly made fun of on this podcast about Jimmy Butler's going to the Rockets. It's like, is he? See, how do we know? Has anyone told Jimmy Butler or the Sixers? And then, and that didn't work out. And, we got to put a bow in the Kawhi thing because his options are, I would say, 1-1 with Toronto, go to the Clippers and just be the guy on a Clippers team that's really would not be a title contender even if you put him on there, or be the third wheel with the Lakers. And he would be the third wheel. Would he care? I don't know. But we're coming off of playoffs where he was the best guy in the league. And I just don't feel like that would be the vibe on that Laker team. I thought the whole point of all this was he was supposed to be the guy. And it was like, Kawhi needs to be in a big city and he needs a great shoe contract and he needs everybody to realize how great he is. And then you're going to be on LeBron's team. That feels weird. Something doesn't feel realistic about it to me, but he's also the most confusing guy in the league. So I'd believe anything.
Speaking of that, there's no scenario. I just want to go ahead and rule this out immediately because of we're talking about some GMs who pull giant rabbits out of their assholes. There's no scenario under which Kawhi can go to Houston, right?
None.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that.
Not unless it's for James Harden.
Surprised us before, huh?
Not unless it's for James Harden.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure that's the case. Because, like, help me with this. Why is Jimmy Butler going to Miami? What's in it for him?
Because he cares about winning. He wants to win a title.
Which title? The Platinum Pussy title? Because that's the only thing, I mean, to really distinguish Miami.
Jimmy Butler took a big...
Does that have to get cut?
No, we're keeping that in. That is not getting cut. Jimmy took a big L over the last year. He clearly just wanted... Yeah, I think he did. Because he pushed his way out of Minnesota for reasons that remain unclear. He goes to Philly. He's on a team that really almost, came within a couple bounces there, beating the team that ended up winning the title. And he was I'm all about winning. I'm all about championship mentality, all that stuff. And now he's in Miami playing with Hassan Whiteside.
He was beloved in Philly. This is why I'm confounded by him going to Miami. The only things to commend Miami: the beach, the weather,
Pat Riley,
no state
Spoelstra,
tax,
Pat Riley,
Pat
Levitard, Stu Gatz, Poppy,
and the Platinum Pussy Parade. I mean, it's a triple P down there. Let's not sugarcoat it. But like, that can't be your legacy. That can't be your career. Philly loved him. He's a Philly guy. He fought his way up. I mean, he really could have owned that city. I just don't understand it.
There was a couple things online today about how much it meant to him how Miami treated Dwayne Wade, the retirement stuff on his way out, and the respect and admiration and love and that whole farewell tour because he was close with Dwayne Wade, and how he watched that and how Wade was treated. And that really went a long way with him. I guess my point would be a lot of organizations have done that for guys who retired. Was it like Dallas was doing the exact same thing for Dirk Nowitzki?
Yeah, did a pretty good job.
Yeah, so that was weird. I think he just wanted to live in South Beach and be the guy. And I think Dwayne Wade was probably telling him how great it is to be the guy in South Beach. And now he's the guy in South Beach.
Okay.
But
all
I know is, I mean, I'm sure we'll find out because he's a pretty candid guy, but my guess is there were things he didn't like on the Philly side. You and I didn't really enjoy Brett Brown's coaching ever. I imagine Jimmy had his own thoughts, and we had already heard about them. Simmons is an immensely frustrating guy to play with, I'm sure. And Embiid wasn't in shape. And if I'm him and I'm looking at that big picture, maybe I'm like, I don't think I can win a title here anyway. I don't believe in these guys. Yeah, I mean, obviously he didn't believe in those guys because he fled from them and went to Miami. So
he did. I mean, to a bunch of guys who have no track record of success whatsoever. But best of luck.
Did I tell you this happened after we started the pod? Dallas got Dragic out of that. It was Dragic to Dallas, Josh Richardson to Philly, and Butler to Miami. And a couple of things with Dragic, and I haven't researched this, but I'm pretty confident I'm right here. Him and Doncic are tight.
Sure.
I think they played in Europe.
How could they not be?
In fact, I'm going to Google Dragic and Doncic. Oh, stuff comes up. Yeah, they played in the Euros together. There's pictures of them on the bench. There's some high five pictures. Yeah. It's a Slovenian. Oh, mentor Goran Dragic.
There you go.
So so that's great for Dallas. You and I love Dragic because he kicked. Remember when he kicked the shit out of the 2010 Spurs? I've always liked him after that. Remember that?
Yeah, me too. I mean, that Phoenix team with him and Channing Frye of all players,
and Nash,
they had an unstoppable pick and roll.
Dudley, that was a really fun team. I think he's been on some weird teams over the last few years, especially Miami. And I think Dwayne Wade, it was weird to watch the kind of hold Dwayne Wade had over those teams, especially in crunch time when he was at the tail end of his career. But yeah, I like that move for Dallas. So I guess the only other free agency thing we didn't mention is what happens with Boogie Cousins. It's an absolute shame that the Wizards don't have the salary cap to overpay him. I know you're devastated. It would have been the most Wizardsy move of all time to give him
Well,
Three
we
for
would have been
100.
first in line for Terry Rozier. That would have been the most Wizardsy move, but Boogie would have been second. I'm still a Boogie believer. I want him to take this summer to get himself in the shape that he was working himself up to, because the flashes that he showed in the finals were pretty, he had a couple moments. He still knows how to play basketball. His body just wouldn't respond. Like, you could see his brain telling his body to do stuff and his body wouldn't do it. And I hope that, with the advances in medical science, that he's capable of getting leaner and getting back some of the spring in his step that was clearly diminished from the Achilles injury and then followed up with a quad injury. I'm hopeful that he's healthy. I want a healthy Boogie in my life.
Well, House, we said we were doing this in real time. Mark Stein just retweeted, the Mavericks are huge fans of Goran Dragic, but could not take him back in the Miami sign and trade with Philly because they feared losing flexibility to make additional moves this summer. So somehow that's out the window. That was our first red herring on the podcast. I want to keep all the stuff we said about Dragic in, though, because I think it kind of shows how funny this is. Oh, here's another one from Shams. The Bucks are expressing strong interest in free agent center Robin Lopez to join his brother Brook in Milwaukee. I'm so happy. Oh, I'm like cool. Glowing right now.
That would be cool. I want Dragic to go to Philly. I honestly think that he knows how to run a pick and roll, and anything that's going to put Joel Embiid down in the block or, from 16 feet inside, that they need a point guard that can play in crunch time in the playoffs. Ben Simmons is not that guy, and unfortunately neither is TJ McConnell. So I want Philly to go get a credible, accomplished, high basketball IQ point guard to really make that team compelling this coming year.
Any last words for the Clippers?
Best of luck. Look, it's Steve Ballmer. All he did was, help build, one of the two biggest companies in the history of the world. So I'm not putting anything past him, but it doesn't look great right now.
Here's their team.
Sorry, Ice. Sorry to Isaac Lee.
Yeah. Gallinari, Lou Williams, Harrell, Shea, Gilgeous-Alexander, Jerome Robinson, Landry Shamet, Sedarius Thornwell, Tyrone Wallace. They have, oh Lord. They still have like $75 million left to spend. Wow.
Hey, it's only Sunday night. There's a lot that can happen.
Would you do like a 1 year for 22 for Boogie if you were them?
Now, God, I just don't have any. I would. You really have to have some advanced thinking in terms of the physical capacity, like what he's capable of physically.
Can I give you a couple of my favorite free agents before we go that are left?
Let's do it.
I love Robin Lopez, and I really don't want him to go to the Milwaukee. I want him to go to Boston. Come to Boston, Robin Lopez. P. Bev. Seth Curry.
Yeah. Seth Curry is going to be good for somebody.
Justin Holiday, I'm pretty sure, is a free agent. I like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Richaun Holmes.
Sure.
Or Rashawn Holmes. I don't know why I said Richaun. I like Rashawn Holmes, though. I think he's a sleeper. Rodney Magruder, who is still on the Clippers. Am I wrong to like Satoransky?
You're not wrong. I think they're going to try and keep him here in Washington because they don't have another point guard really on the team.
Okay. Am I wrong to like TJ McConnell? As like an eighth man?
Like a
ninth man?
Maybe
10th man?
Like it better as a ninth man. 10th man? Yeah. 10th man.
How do you feel about Costa Koufis?
Is he still in the league?
I guess that's my answer. Rondo?
Oh, playoff Rondo? He should just take off this season and come back for the playoffs.
Yeah, could somebody just sign Rondo and tell him to show up on April 1st? Please stay away from our team until April.
I mean, he would do that deal, wouldn't he?
You wouldn't take him for the whiz?
No. God, no.
All right, House. I think we hit everything. Did we hit everything, right?
Yeah, we hit everything. There's a lot going on. This is an ongoing saga. Tonight is the first night we don't have to conquer it all. We're at the bottom of the mountain still.
Oh, so
Kawhi, we don't know where Kawhi Leonard's going to play next year, for Christ's sakes.
It seems like New Orleans is getting Derek Favors, who I know you've enjoyed.
Look, another smart veteran to go with that New Orleans team. David Griffin, A++.
Doesn't nobody
David Griffin
seems to
and Trajan Langdon.
Nobody seems to understand. It's now 10:40 p.m. ET. Nobody seems to understand how Jimmy Butler is actually going to go to the Heat. So that might be a problem. This podcast
or
might
why?
be in trouble. Well, because they can't match the salaries. I'm looking at somebody just tweeted Kelly Olynyk and Derek Jones would have to go to the Mavs, and that's still not enough for a trade and match and blah, blah, blah. So it's very confusing right now.
Kelly Olynyk's my homie. I want him to land somewhere good for him. Good eater, Kelly Olynyk.
Before we go, I'm giving you 60 seconds as a Wizards fan to tell the Knicks fans to fuck off, that the Wizards fans actually have it worse. Go.
Ernie Grunfeld. I don't need 60 seconds. Ernie Grunfeld was the GM for 16 years here in Washington. We're going to pay a penance. We missed the window for the maximum opportunity free agent wise. So apparently he didn't have a calendar in his office and wasn't keeping track of when these contracts on these super duper stars were going to come off, because our money lifts next year. Jan Mahinmi and Dwight Howard are off the books next year. $22 million opening up for the Washington Wizards in a year where there are no fucking free agents. Congratulations. And who can you get for $22 fucking million? It's the goddamn NBA. You have to have at least 40. Jesus Christ. Don't talk to me. The Knicks at least have exciting young players. Who's the best young player on the Washington Wizards?
Beal. You Beal.
I'm not counting him because he's not going to be on the team.
Listen, you have John Wall's contract for 4 more years.
I'm telling you that if we're going to pay him this year, go ahead and get our insurance money. And if they don't stretch him at the beginning of the 2020-2021 season, I'm going to stretch myself right on out as a Wizards fan. I'm already in on the DC United, by the way. DC United.
You have
DC United. I'm a soccer guy.
This season, you have John Wall for 38.2, Jan Mahinmi for 15.5, Dwight Howard for 5.6, and Jonathan Simmons for 5.7, who apparently you traded for on draft night to get a second-round pick. You added his salary to this mix.
Well, that's how we got Admiral Schofield. That was a good pick. That was worthwhile.
Jonathan Simmons.
We can waive him. We'll waive him.
And you bailed out Rob Pelinka when he had to get rid of all his riffraff for more max money. You got Mo Wagner, you got Isaac Bonga, and you got some guy named Jamario Jones. All those guys are on your team.
Mo Bonga Jones. That's a great law firm. Mo Bonga Jones.
Do you think the Dwight Howard retirement tour this year will be more emotional than Dwayne Wade's retirement tour, or like slightly less more emotional?
It feels like it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass if I was just going to be direct about
it. House, we can listen to you at House of Carbs. When is the British Open?
It is in 2 weeks. The preview shows July the 15th and 16th, and then we'll have the recap show on the 21st, I believe. I have no idea who's going to win the Open Championship, competed this year in Northern Ireland at Royal Portrush.
And when speaking of golf, we have Cousin Sal and the Degenerate Trifecta going to Callaway mid-July. We're going to do a little fitting and shoot some videos. And personally, I think that's more exciting than the British Open, but I don't know.
I'm just hoping nobody gets arrested. That's my only hope for that.
Am I the last person who calls it the British Open? I know we're supposed to call it the Open Championship now. Can I still call it the British Open or no?
You can. It's America. Feel free to call it whatever you want.
Yeah, it is America, goddammit. And we have the semifinals. We're playing England. Same week of July 4th.
That's right.
Whatever anniversary it is
British
when
Open.
we kicked their asses out of this country and we took this country for ourselves. So I can't wait for that. And then hopefully the finals against Sweden, Netherlands. I know you're watching. I know once you saw the words Sweden and Netherlands in a sporting event, you just started watching it. You didn't even care what the sport was. Two of your favorite countries, House.
I'm a happily married man, and I feel like I shouldn't make any more observations on that front.
Joe House, we can hear you at House of Carbs and Fairway Rolling. Thanks for the time on this fantastic day of free agency.
It's all happening, Bill Simmons.
All right, thanks to House. Thanks to ZipRecruiter. We will be back on Tuesday with a lot more. Until then, enjoy the rest of the day.